Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Mr. Idarola here with a presentation on colonial settlement, responding to short answer prompts. And this is a quick review of how to respond. And I know we've gone over this before, probably in class, but I wanted you to see this again so you know exactly what to do when you have to deal with a short answer response in history class. So, hey, let's get right to it. What's the objective here? Identify the characteristics of an excellent short answer response to a historical prompt. That's what we're doing here. We're going to use the RACE method, which you may be familiar with from language arts. So this shouldn't be too different from what we do at language arts. There's a slight difference at the end, but we'll take a look at that in a second. Okay, so hey, keeping track of our skills. This is a build upon all the other skills we've learned. Vocabulary self collection. Knowing the vocabulary you're reading, correct? Reading and summary skills. The before reading activity that we completed. We've learned during and after reading strategies in class as well, and we've learned to summarize text using delete, substitute, keep strategy. So, how do we think about history when we write? And that's an important thing here. And we think about it using these historical inferences, the ones that we've been learning about. So, they're going to apply here. Okay, so it assists reading strategies and historical thinking. It assists in developing your writing skills. So, those six historical inferences we learned about, they're going to play a role here. And we're going to see how that works as we get to the end of the writing process. Our writing strategies. We're going to practice our first true writing skill here, and that's responding to a short answer prompt. How do you do that in history? That's what we're looking at right now. So, the fundamentals of a response, we use race. Well, that doesn't mean that has nothing to do with ethnicity or any of that stuff. It's just an acronym. So, even for a short answer prompt, the race strategy applies. What is this? It's restating the question in the response. That's the first thing you want to do. If a question is asked, how old is Mr. Idarola? Mr. Idarola is blank years old, I'm afraid to tell you, although I told some classes. Okay, so restate the question, the response. There's another way to say this. You've probably heard of IQA, incorporate the question into the answer. It's the same thing. So whatever the question is, in what year was Jamestown established? Jamestown was established in 1607. So that's incorporating the question into the answer or restating the question in the response. Answer the question completely. Now, we kind of do this in two stages. So when we get there, I'll show you. Cite specific details and examples to support your response. Okay, I need some details here, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Expand, explain, extend your response using the historical inferences. So that's where those historical inferences, that's what we're going to use them for. Keep that in mind. So again, the writing process: restate, answer, cite, expand, explain, extend, and that's your RACE method for responding to short answer questions. Okay, let's look at an example, and it's the same one we used in class. Identify the two reasons why Jamestown was a success in the early years of settlement. Let's get the R out of the way. Two reasons why Jamestown was a success had to do with, well, what's the answer? Now, I'm asking for two specific reasons. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to at first just generally give the reasons in the topic sentence. I'm not going to answer with details here, but I'm going to say Native American support in its early years and the policies developed by the English to bring more people to the colonies. Now you'll notice that's a general answer. I don't want to stop with that, but that's a good opening answer here. It's a great topic sentence. I'm restating the question by saying two reasons why Jamestown was a success had to do with Native American support in its early years and the land policies developed by the English to bring more people to the colonies. R&A is done. So that's not so tough. You can almost do R&A in one sentence if you're really good. What do I cite here? Well, you're going to consider events, policies, people, vocabulary terms, and dates associated with the response to support it. That's what you want to do here. So this is my next sentence, or my next couple sentences. The Powhatan chief and his daughter Pocahontas formed an uneasy alliance with Jamestown settlers and provided food and assistance for the settlers in its early years to maintain its survival. Later, the introduction of the tobacco crop by John Rolfe and the headright system, which provided 50 acres of land for those who could pay their own way to America, attracted more settlers to Jamestown. So there's your success. Native American help at the beginning, and new policies and new products to grow that made money for the colony. Okay, as your second reason why for success. So looking at this, you can see why I incorporated names of peoples, actual historical figures, Pocahontas, John Roth. I even incorporated a vocabulary term in here. I could have added dates. Someone in class mentioned, Mr. Wright, you could have added a date here, made it better, and I totally agree. But this is good. I mean, if I saw this answer right out, this also comes from my chapter summary sheet, which is where you should be looking for these answers. This works. What's next? Expand, explain, and extend. And we're going to consider our historical inferences. We're going back to those. Comparing context, cause and effect, continuity and change, historical relevance, or period of history. Now, I did ask some questions to do this, and I just kind of went through the historical inferences. Can I make a comparison between this person, place, and or event to another person, place, and or event? That's compare. How does this person, place, and or event relate to other people, places, and or events happening at the same time? Is there context here, right? Is this related to anything else going on? Do these people, places, and or events still have relevance or importance, significance to people, places, and or events in our modern world? How does it relate to today? What caused this event? What are the effects of it? This led to that. Cause and effect. Do these people, places, and or events show how things stay the same in history? Or do these people, places, and or events show how things change? There's your continuity and change. And finally, do these events clearly represent the historical period in which they occur? If so, how or why does the event reflect the period? What about it? If not, how or why does it not? There's your periodization. And these are the questions I kind of ask myself before I finally answer the question at the end with one of the historical inferences. And I got to be honest, the two that kind of stuck out for me were these two: context and periodization. And I did actually go with, in the end, periodization. The establishment of Jamestown after the failure of Roanoke in the late 1500s marked the beginning of the colonial period in America for the English. Eventually, the English would establish 13 colonies in North America. And there you go. I mean, I should be done. So, what's my finished product look like? And you'll notice what I did here is I actually color coded when I transitioned from each of the steps in race. 2 reasons why Jamestown was a success had to do with, hey, there's my rephrasing that question in the response. Native American support in its early years, and the land policies developed by the English to bring more people to the colonies. There's my 2 reasons. Now I need to cite some information to back these up. The Powhatan chief and his daughter, Pocahontas, formed an uneasy alliance with the Jamestown settlers and provided food and assistance for the settlers in its early years to maintain its survival. Period. There's my first reason for success. Later, after the introduction of tobacco crop by John Roth and the headright system, which provided 50 acres of land for those who could pay their own way to America, attracted more settlers to Jamestown. There's 2 reasons, and yes, there are others. Certainly, I could talk about John Smith's leadership. Certainly, I could talk about the fact that Jamestown received a continuous supply of new colonists and new resupplies, which kept them alive when things were looking bad. So there are other things I could mention here, but this works. I could mention geography of Jamestown, how it's different from Roanoke. So there are other things I could have considered. These 2 worked. Finally, I have my historical inference. The establishment of Jamestown after the failure of Roanoke in the late 1500s marked the beginning of the colonial period in America for the English. Eventually, the English would establish 13 colonies in North America. Whether I need that last sentence or not, that's up for consideration. I could have stopped really after saying the colonial period in America for the English, but I wanted to show that this whole period, it's going to affect all the colonies. So that's why I added what I call my cherry on top for my sundae at the end here, which is this last sentence. This is the rubric I use to grade these. Okay, notice you want to be in the outstanding or satisfactory categories. That's what we're aiming for. I mean, if you look at mine, I certainly did. I restated the question and the answer. It's concise. It's well organized. It's probably above grade level. At least it should be, right? So, also citing accurate information to support your response. Response incorporates excellent details and examples related explicitly or implicitly to the supporting text. And again, I looked at the chapter summary sheet to get my cited information. That's where that came from. Response extends the response with at least one historical inference and demonstrates mastery of the historical inference by providing specific details and examples in the response. I do actually mention it's the colonial period here. I could have put the dates in for it. I could have said 1607 to 1763, but I added that final sentence to show how this relates to all the colonies at the end, and that's what worked. Some do nots to consider of historical writing. Never start your response with a question. Try to avoid that at all costs. It's great for some forms of language arts writing. It doesn't work well here. Never say "I think." Do you know? As you can see in conclusion. In a kind of freestyle language arts writing, this is okay. But for our formal writing in history, you want to avoid these. Avoid I statements completely. Of course you think. I know you do. You're telling me. So if you've been taught to use a lot of I statements, you don't want to do that in history class. You want it to be a formal type of writing. In general, let's avoid things and stuff. You have your chapter summary sheet out when you do these. You shouldn't have to tell me things and stuff. You should tell me what those things and stuff are. It's just really that simple. Never use symbols, numbers, any kind of texting shorthand in your formal writing, right? You spell out before. You don't write before. You're going to put before. You can actually, or 51 is 51. You may use dates for numbers, and I'm okay with that. A true short answer is never really short, right? I mean, look at the one we just completed. It's 5 sentences. So anywhere between 3 to 8 sentences would be considered normal. Don't let that intimidate you. That's just what you're supposed to do. Okay. And once again, when you've completed your short answer, I always attach the rubric. You check it. See how well you think you did. If you're looking at the rubric and going, oh boy, this one looks like approaching standard or not meeting standard, I better fix it. Be reflective about your writing. Consider how you can always improve it. I know with this one, when I initially wrote it, notice I'm critical of myself. I felt like I should have included more dates here. So maybe if I had to really write this, I would have done that. I would have added those dates. Okay, so, be self-critical. That's okay. I mean, that's how you improve yourself as a person. You're constantly looking for ways to improve and perfect what you're already doing, make it even better. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay, so you're aiming for that outstanding grade. So you get that 12 out of 12. Okay, hey, that ends this presentation. Again, always look at the rubric at the end, make sure everything's good. And our next writing prompt will be res ec, and that one applies to our history analysis and our history responses to primary source documents. But we'll get to that later. Okay, hey, with that, have a nice day. Thank you very much.